Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. I want to start today's episode with a story, a personal story. It's a story about a woman named Anastasia. The war for her was obviously hard. It was hard for all Ukrainians. But for her, it was also an additional pain. 4 months ago, her husband has died on the war while defending Ukraine, freedom, and democracy. It was a massive blow for her. And then one of the days during the January, she was talking with her parents, making some silly jokes, trying to lighten up the day somehow. She went to her room just to see what's happening and so on. And then suddenly the explosion. The door that to the room fell on top of her and protected her from a lot of rubble. She was able to slowly crawl under it, and she saw that pieces of kitchen were now scattered across her room. And instead of kitchen, there is just now nothing, a hole in the building. She slowly was able to crawl out of the building and she was able to get rescued. Unfortunately, with this explosion, her cat died. But more importantly, her parents are still yet to be found. The last she remembers, they were staying in the kitchen where the explosion came in. And now the question is, Russia has taken everything from her. She was living her life in Dnipro, a city, a city that is far away from the front lines. And there was just a missile that was fired at it, and it came through. What Russia wants is that Russia wants us to live in this world. In the world, if certain country has enough strength and power, then they are able to do whatever they can and whatever they want. So when we are supporting Ukraine, I want all of us to remember the story of Anastasia that lost her husband, her pet, potentially her parents. Hopefully they'll be found. But her whole life was ruined by Russia. And that is exactly what motivates me doing this channel and hopefully other channels as well. But with that said, let's go to the today's map update and I will explain you the situation on the front lines and hopefully we'll see when this awful war come to an end. So as always, we will start from the north part here. We know that there is back and forth push that is happening around Svatove here in the area. However, it's been slowed down significantly. As I've told you some weeks ago, the forces have been moved out from the area, and both for Russians and Ukrainians. Russians have been sending reinforcements to Kreminna a while ago, around Christmas. But now, since then, Ukrainians are actually having a better time and they are slowly but surely advancing towards Kreminna. And more importantly, there appeared a new video where the mobilized troops that are defending Kreminna are saying that what was sent essentially as the reinforcements for the VDV, that half of those reinforcements are by this point wiped out. So I guess that's some good news, and Ukraine is continuing its strategy of wiping out Russians from existence on the territory of Ukraine. Soledar situation, just now, right as I'm recording, finally some official statements came in from the Ukrainian military saying that yes, Soledar is indeed taken by the Russians. So what I was saying last time, it is. Again, it's bad, but it's not a terrible situation and so on. Let's talk about Bakhmut. So for Bakhmut, Krasna Khora and Paraskoviivka are the two settlements. So the thing here is that Krasna Khora, there is like hills that is over here and there is like hills over there. So for Russians, it's a very uncomfortable position to storm into Krasna Khora. So if Russians want to get through the Krasna Khora, it's gonna be quite tough for them. And the same is Pidorodne. One of the important things, for example, that someone told me, and I follow the analysts, is they said that the village itself of Pidorodne is located in kind of valley, but more importantly are the hills that are here around the village. So we can see that Russians are trying to take some of these hills to then move towards Krasna Hora and so on. However, they're still somewhat far away, and if you can see, there is this small river that goes along the settlement, as well as some railway tracks. So those two have been shown in this war to be quite strong defensive lines, and Russia needs to take Krasna Hora if they are to cut the northern supply road for Bakhmut. Then we go to the south part of Bakhmut, and southern part of Bakhmut is Klishchiivka. So for a longer time, we have been discussing that Russians were trying to essentially attack Klishchiivka either from the east, kind of directly, or they wanted to go kind of northeast. But those were very unfavorable positions because, again, if topography goes up the hill over there. So instead, they are now trying to push through the south part of Klishchiivka and move around the city, essentially take maybe the high ground and overcome Klishchiivka for the high ground. As I remind you, Klishchiivka is extremely important for Russians to take because this slowly but surely allows them to get to this road that is one of the supply roads for Bakhmut. It's not going to be an easy task, but it's just going to be something for us to be aware of. There is still some resistance as Opitne, so Opitne is not yet taken fully. And as I say always, taking these hills for Russians will be extremely, extremely hard. Additionally, last time I was talking about the fact that it's going to be quite problematic for Russians to get from Bakhmut, even if they're taken towards Sloviansk, Kramatorsk. And I talked to you that there is a lot of urban settlements. So there's a lot of buildings that they can be used as protective lines. There is a lot of rivers and lakes that can be used as defensive barriers. But one thing that I didn't mention is right now we're looking at a topographic map of this. And you can see all of these ridges. So all of these ridges actually towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk is actually somewhat up the hill. So when we're talking there's going to be an uphill battle for Russians to fight towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, it's going to be literally an uphill battle. So that's just something to be aware of. Around Opitne, Avdiivka, and so on, there's still tactical fighting, nothing too significant to report. Marinka still stands despite all of the claims that Russians are making. It is still completely impassable objects for them. And there are still a little bit of developments on the south side. That is it for the map update. Very, very quick one. There is not much that is happening on the strategic sense. Russians, they just don't have the force to do any kind of major push. Obviously, we're still expecting the declaration of mobilization by the Russians. And after that, we're still looking down into potentially kind of somewhat tough couple of months for Ukrainians. But with that said, let's quickly go to the vlogging part, and I will talk about some other things. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and it's an interesting thing that the journalists in Russia have been looking into, is the survival rate for Wagnerites, especially for the Wagner prisoners, because they've released some of the prisoners with amnesty just recently. So, and the journalists, they have calculated what's the survival rate, which is 0.28%. So for every prisoner that goes out of the Russian prison, for him the chances of survival is 0.28%. This just shows the effectiveness of Ukrainian military. And yes, they obviously need more firepower to kill even more of these human waves. Especially if you see, I've talked in my recent stream about how these waves are happening. I recommend you watch it. It was very quick. It was just an hour. And if you haven't seen some of the videos about the destruction of these groups, you always see that it's the same thing. It's just lightly armored, just people. You almost don't see any armor at all. And they're just moving forward and forward and forward and forward. The only way for Ukraine to deal with this, to receive more weapons. As simple as that. And if we're talking about the supplies of weapons, we see that Great Britain has declared that they're going to send Challenger tanks. I believe the number was floating around was 14 Challenger tanks. And besides that, there's going to be also 30 155 millimeter self-propelled artillery systems. Or was it howitzers? I think it was self-propelled artillery systems. That is great. We also know that on the 20th of January, the Ramstein meeting is coming. So UK is raising the bar quite high for the coming into the Ramstein meeting. Obviously, Poland wants to supply, and there has been a modification that was floating around, which modification of Leopard 2 tanks will be supplied. And I think it was 2A4, which is not very new, and some people say that it's comparable to T-672s, and fair enough. But we need to understand that people said, like, well, why Western tank supply is such a big deal? Because it's a whole another level. Again, I've talked a lot about why tanks are important for Ukraine in their conflict. In the stream, I really recommend you watch it. And overall, this only means one thing, that Ukraine will get all the weapons that it wants. We see the psychological break in pretty much every state, and, well, Germany. So the story of the day, obviously, with the Germany is that Rheinmetall CEO says that to deliver Leopard 2s from Germany, they will need to have at least a year of repairs done on those. And I am lost for words. You know, it's like, it's every single time there's something else. Every single time. Like, I really appreciate Germany. I really appreciate what Germany is doing. It's just every single time we have this discussion, there is something else. There is something always wrong with Germany. It's not just like, yes, this is this. Here, Bradley's, like US says, we're going to deliver Bradley's. There we go. 2 weeks training. Bradley's delivered. Good luck. It's always something. So yeah, very quick today discussion. I will be having more videos and streams in the coming week. And Slava Ukraine, you guys. Thank you so much for everyone that is supporting this channel. I really appreciate it. Ukraine really appreciate it. Please support Ukraine more. See you guys next time.